It was a night wrapped in a golden glow when Michael Turner left the grand ballroom of a luxurious hotel in the heart of New York City. The atmosphere still buzzed with elegant laughter and clinking crystal glasses, but Michael felt restless. A young millionaire and heir to one of the city's greatest fortunes, he seemed destined for a life of successful business, dazzling parties, and the company of high society's most beautiful women. Yet something in his heart felt different, a hollow feeling he couldn't explain. Lost in thought, he wandered the bustling streets of the city that never sleeps, unknowingly searching for something. Before we continue with this emotional story, I'd like to ask you for a quick favor. Please subscribe to the channel and help me reach the 1,000 subscriber milestone. Now, let's continue. Then his eyes settled on a scene that starkly contrasted his reality. Leaning against a park bench, dimly lit by a street lamp, was a young woman. Her clothes were worn, patched together in a way that told of life's battles. Emma, though Michael wouldn't know her name until later. What struck him wasn't her tattered clothes or the thinness that hinted at days without food, but rather her deep gaze, one filled with restrained sadness, like an ocean of pain hidden in her brown eyes. Michael stopped, his steps faltering as if the world around him had paused. What drew him to this woman, he couldn't say. It felt like an invisible yet powerful bond. Without thinking, he approached her with a hesitant gesture, worried she might be frightened. "Hi, are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice gentle as though afraid to interrupt a dream. Emma looked up, surprised and a bit wary. Few people approached her with anything other than indifference, or worse, contempt. Noticing the stark contrast between their worlds, she still couldn't bring herself to snap back. There was a sincerity in his expression that softened her instinctive defensiveness. She felt the weight of her pride, but also the exhaustion of someone fighting a relentless wave of hardship. "I'm just passing the time," she murmured, trying to sound casual, even though her clothes and hollow gaze told a story that words couldn't disguise. Yet Michael sensed more in that brief exchange. An unexpected empathy stirred within him, a genuine desire to do something beyond mere pity, a sincere wish to offer a small reprieve from the pain he sensed in her. "I was just going to grab dinner. Would you join me?" he asked almost pleadingly, as if fearing she might refuse. Emma hesitated, her expression showing a mixture of surprise and caution. Previous experiences had taught her to be wary, to distrust the generosity of strangers. But as she looked at Michael's face, she felt a wave of relief, as if his sincerity offered not just a meal, but a small spark of hope. "All right," she finally answered with a shy smile, as someone who knows the value of every simple gesture. That moment seemed to defy the world's usual coldness, and as she accepted the offer, she felt a brief flame of dignity she had long thought lost. Michael led her to a nearby restaurant, where the staff's reception oscillated between forced courtesy and veiled judgment. He noticed the looks from other patrons, their discomfort, but ignored them with determination, holding the door open for her to enter. As they settled at a table, he made it clear to the waiter that he wanted the best dish for his guest, disregarding others' reactions entirely. Watching Emma, Michael realized how cruel the world could be to those who had lost everything, even their dignity. As the meal progressed, Emma, still cautious, began to relax. She gradually shared bits of her story without delving into specifics, mentioning that her parents' passing had left her helpless and that hardships gradually mounted like waves, leading her down a path with seemingly no return. Each word she spoke was filled with palpable pain, but also a silent strength that intrigued Michael more and more. Michael listened attentively, his gaze steady on her, increasingly drawn to her aura of resilience despite her trials. He saw in her an unbreakable dignity, something that went beyond appearances or circumstances. Part of him finally began to understand that what truly mattered wasn't status or wealth, but the courage to face life with one's head held high, even when everything seemed lost. As the night wore on, Michael walked her back to the bench where he had first seen her. Standing under the same street lamp, he looked into her eyes once again, a new feeling growing inside him, a mix of admiration and respect that he couldn't quite explain. "Can I come by tomorrow, so we can share a meal together again?" he asked gently, almost as though seeking permission to get closer to a world he knew so little about. Surprised by his question, Emma nodded, unable to hide the spark of joy growing in her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen for who she truly was, without labels or judgments. In that simple question, there was an unspoken promise. something that went beyond generosity, and that she knew would change her life. Michael bid her good night, watching from afar as she returned to her place. Something called him to see her again, as if this woman had awakened in him a compassion and interest he didn't yet understand, but already knew he couldn't ignore. Every day, without fail, Michael returned to the spot where he'd met Emma. Each encounter deepened his venture into unknown territory, a place of new discoveries and feelings he had never experienced before. Emma, initially wary, gradually lowered her defenses. Their shared meals became a ritual, a pause in the rush of life where two worlds intertwined almost magically. Each meeting brought a new exchange of words, gestures, and especially silences that spoke more than words. In those quiet moments, Michael saw how deep her pain ran, hidden behind a serene face that sometimes broke into a distant, shadowed look. He watched her subtle gestures, her unassuming posture, and it was as if she had learned to shrink herself, like someone who had lost too much to claim space in the world again. They began their conversations with light topics, trivial observations about the weather, or a curious scene at the park. Slowly, Michael guided their dialogue to deeper matters, sharing funny stories from his childhood, memories filled with laughter and carefree times. He watched with satisfaction as Emma's eyes lit up briefly, as if transported to another place. Each flicker of happiness that shone through her suffering touched Michael in ways he couldn't describe. One day, as they watched leaves fall around them, Emma took a deep breath, as if about to unlock a long-buried secret. There was something about Michael that made her feel, if not safe, at least welcomed. And there, in the middle of the park, she began to reveal what life had taken from her. "My parents died in a car accident," she said hesitantly, almost as though it were the first time she dared speak those words aloud. "I was only 18. I was too young to understand what it meant to lose everything all at once." Michael remained silent, respecting the sorrow pouring out of each word. He had never lost anyone that way. The thought of losing everything terrified him. His silence allowed Emma the space she needed to continue, and she felt relieved by the lack of judgment in his eyes. "It felt like my whole world collapsed overnight. I was about to go to college. I had so many dreams, but as you know, life isn't like a fairy tale. When my parents passed, there was no one to help me. The few relatives I had quickly disappeared, as if I were a burden." Her voice faltered, and Michael gently took her hand. It was a firm but respectful gesture, as one who understands the fragility of the moment. Emma allowed herself a brief pause, taking a deep breath before continuing. "In the beginning, I tried to keep it all together. I worked wherever I could get hired, but it was hard, impossible. Bills piled up, and the little money I made barely kept me going. I lost the apartment, then my job. Slowly, I lost everything." Michael listened with an intensity he hadn't known. He could feel the depth of her suffering, as if somehow he was living it alongside her. It was a stark contrast to the life he had always known, surrounded by stability and endless resources. He knew he had never had to fight for survival, which made him value Emma's quiet courage even more. "After a while, you learn to survive in ways you never imagined," Emma continued, her voice slightly trembling. "It's an instinct that takes over, you know? You adapt, you find ways to get by, but that doesn't mean it stops hurting." Michael felt a knot in his throat. He was fascinated and haunted at the same time by her strength, a strength he had never seen in anyone around him. He knew Emma had been tested by life in ways he couldn't understand, and this stirred in him a deep admiration. She was like a rock, shaped and hardened by storms, and yet there was something vulnerable, something human in her, that made him feel the need to protect her, even if he knew she wouldn't allow herself to be protected. Each day, Michael felt the bond between them grow stronger. It wasn't just attraction to Emma's quiet beauty, nor mere curiosity about someone so different from him. It was a growing respect for the woman she was, for her ability to stay whole, even when everything seemed set on breaking her. And Emma, in turn, began to see Michael as a friend, someone who didn't see her as a charity case or an oddity, but as a whole human being, worthy of respect and, above all, affection. During their meals, between bites, Emma's laughter started to emerge, still shy but more frequent. It was as if, with Michael, she could momentarily set aside the facade of coldness and exhaustion life had imposed on her. Michael made a concerted effort to make her laugh, and every time he heard that sound, he felt like he had won a small victory, a spark of light in the sea of shadows that he knew surrounded her. Their friendship blossomed naturally, but with an intensity both felt yet neither would openly admit. Each encounter was a new discovery, a deeper dive into their souls, and Michael felt, with a mix of joy and pain, that he was inexorably connected to Emma. He understood that there was something in her that touched a part of him he had never known existed, and he wanted more than anything to protect that connection, to hold on to it even though he knew that doing so meant entering uncertain and dangerous territory. What he couldn't have foreseen was that this friendship and admiration would grow to challenge everything he thought he knew about life. Emma's painful confessions had planted a seed in his heart, something he couldn't yet name, but that was beginning to transform his view of the world, and most importantly, of himself. Each time they met, he felt less like a successful millionaire and more like a man willing to look beyond appearances and conventions to discover something real. One evening, after weeks in which their friendship and respect had deepened, something different lingered in the air. There was a tension, a subtle yet relentless magnetism that grew stronger with each shared smile and prolonged glance. They had chosen a small, discreet bar, far from the prying eyes and judgmental stares Michael often felt when with Emma. There they sat in a secluded corner, a space where they could speak freely, immerse themselves in each other without reservations. The first sips of their drinks were slow, tentative, accompanied by light laughs and silent smiles. Michael, always reserved with his emotions, felt strangely vulnerable yet free around her. With Emma, he didn't need the Turner surname or his titles. Just her company was enough for them both to lose themselves in their own universe, far from the weight of social roles. Emma, too, felt something new, almost intoxicating. In Michael's presence, she could forget the shadows of her past and the constant fear life on the streets had imprinted on her heart. He made her feel human, wanted, not as a walking stigma or a pitiful figure, but as a woman, simply. Each word exchanged, each story shared, drew her deeper, as if for one night she could be the woman she'd always dreamed of being. As the night wore on, the drinks loosened their tongues, and both spoke with a rare candor, like confidants sharing secrets that belonged only to them. Michael's stories of childhood challenges, the weight of family expectations, and the pressure to maintain a perfect image made him seem more human than Emma had ever imagined. In the end, he was just someone who also suffered, someone who felt lost too. "I feel like I live in a gilded cage," he confessed, staring at his hands as if searching for answers in them. "Everything I have, everything I've achieved feels so empty. But when I'm with you, Emma, it's like life makes sense, even if only for a few hours." Her breath caught at that statement. She looked at him, eyes brimming with a mixture of joy and sorrow, unable to understand how someone so different could feel such a similar loneliness. She knew this attraction was dangerous, that giving in to her feelings meant embarking on a path with no return. But in that moment her heart was already lost. His words had penetrated a part of her that she had thought dead. For a brief moment, a deep, intense silence enveloped them. Their gazes locked, and everything they didn't need to say flowed between them. Michael's breathing grew heavier, and he leaned in slightly, letting his hand rest over Emma's. She didn't pull away. On the contrary, she held his hand firmly, as though this touch was the last anchor keeping her from being swept away by the flood of feelings threatening to overflow. Then, almost instinctively, Michael leaned in, and Emma allowed him to embrace her. It was a simple gesture, yet filled with a deep need, something that transcended physical attraction and touched a realm of pure emotion. Their breaths mingled, their racing hearts beat in sync. For a moment, the world stopped, and they were just two lost souls finding each other in that embrace. Slowly, Michael's lips touched Emma's, and the softness of the kiss sealed everything they felt but had left unspoken. It was as if all the pain, loneliness, and emptiness of their lives dissolved in that instant. They both knew that kiss was the expression of something much larger than themselves, a bond that transcended chance. After the kiss, they lingered there, looking into each other's eyes, as though afraid that the magic might break if either of them spoke. Without a word, Michael took Emma's hand and led her out of the bar. They walked through deserted streets, the silence filled only with the intimacy they shared. Upon reaching Michael's apartment, Emma hesitated briefly, but his gaze was warm, filled with tenderness, and she relented. They entered together, and in that intimate space they shared not only their clothes but also all emotional armor. The night that followed was marked by an intense surrender, a moment of absolute vulnerability, where both allowed themselves to be exactly who they were, without fears, without barriers. To Michael, being with Emma in this way was revolutionary. She was everything he could never publicly want, everything his family would condemn, and yet she was the only person with whom he felt complete. Every touch, every shared breath was a cry of freedom, as if together they could break the invisible chains that bound them. Emma, on the other hand, felt as if she were living a dream, a moment of redemption she had never imagined possible. For the first time in years, she felt seen, wanted, loved. It was pure bliss, a mixture of emotion and a longing for what life had so cruelly taken from her. In each kiss from Michael, she found solace and acceptance that seemed to erase all her scars, even if only for a few hours. The night passed in a whirlwind of feelings and sensations, a perfect harmony of two hearts that, though scarred and lost, found peace in each other. They fell asleep together, exhausted, as though in that act of giving they had drained not only their physical, but also their emotional energy. When the first light of dawn crept through the window, Michael woke and for a moment simply watched her. Emma slept peacefully, her face softened by the morning light. He could have stayed there forever, but soon reality intruded on his thoughts, and he was struck by what that moment meant. Like a hurricane, thoughts of his family, social pressures, and the inevitable judgment he would face if he stayed with her flooded in. He slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake her. He walked to the living room, where he sat in silence, gazing at his reflection in the window. Michael was torn between the intense feelings Emma stirred in him and the weight of his responsibilities and the prejudice he knew awaited him. The confusion left him stunned, and he felt despair rise within him as if he were about to lose control over his own life. When Emma awoke and noticed his absence by her side, a subtle ache filled her chest. She found Michael in the living room, his gaze distant, and she knew immediately that he was wrestling with an internal struggle that involved not only her but an entire universe of judgments and obligations to which he was bound. She watched him for a few moments, hope and fear mixed in her gaze. She knew that the night had been real, but she feared the weight of Michael's life might be too much to bear. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, almost afraid of his answer. Michael, lost in his own doubts, nodded and forced a smile, but Emma saw the hesitation he tried to hide in his eyes. He mumbled something about commitments and obligations, vague words that felt more like an excuse to escape than a genuine explanation. Emma felt the cold grip of reality, but she didn't let him notice. Deep down, she knew there was something between them that could never be erased. Michael, not knowing how to act, left in a hurry, leaving Emma alone in the apartment. As she watched him go, a part of her heart broke, but another hopeful part believed that the feeling they shared wouldn't disappear easily. The days that followed were an emotional whirlwind for Michael. He tried, in vain, to push Emma's image from his mind, the memory of their night together and the warmth of her presence. His daily commitments, meetings, and social obligations had become a lifeless routine. Each passing second filled him with an almost unbearable longing to be with her, a desire that gnawed away at his defenses, leaving him more confused than ever. The idea of moving on without her, of forgetting what he felt, was unbearable. But at the same time, the weight of his duties, societal pressure, and his family's expectations made that desire a double-edged sword. He felt torn between duty and desire, as though any choice he made would inevitably lead to a great loss. However, the emptiness he felt without her grew each day, as though everything he had once considered important had lost its meaning. It was as if Emma had awakened in him something dormant, a truth about himself that he could no longer ignore. Finally, after days of anguish and indecision, Michael made up his mind. He needed to see her again, needed to know if what he felt was real, and, most importantly, if she still felt the same. He returned to the park where they had met, his heart pounding, palms sweaty, a mix of anxiety and hope welling up inside him. When he saw her, the gentle light in Emma's eyes was still there, and that alone was enough to dissolve all his insecurities. She looked at him with the same tenderness, with the same silent intensity, as if he had never left. Michael barely waited to embrace her, holding her tightly, as if afraid she might vanish at any moment. That embrace was the confirmation he needed. He couldn't go on without her. His hands shook slightly, his heart still racing as he searched for the right words. Finally, with a soft smile, he confessed his feelings, his eyes shining with rare sincerity. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice laden with emotion. "These past days have been hell, Emma. I've tried everything, but I can't get you out of my mind. I feel like I'm in love with you." Michael's words washed over Emma like a warm wave, a confirmation she had feared she'd never hear. She had spent those days in silent anguish, fearing that he had left forever, that their magical night had been only a fleeting memory for him. But here he was, looking at her with a genuine, intense gaze, his words filled with real feeling. Emma took a deep breath, hesitating for a moment before revealing the secret she had carried since that night. She looked into his eyes, trying to find the courage to say what needed to be said. Michael sensed her hesitation and instinctively held her hand, offering her a sense of security she had never felt before. "Michael, I don't know how to say this, but I'm pregnant." Her voice trembled, almost a whisper, but firm enough for him to understand. Michael stood still for a moment, the impact of her words sinking in. Pregnant. The word echoed in his mind, bringing with it a flood of emotions. Surprise, joy, and a sense of responsibility he had never experienced. Gradually, a smile lit up his face, a glow of happiness that seemed to fill the room. "We're expecting a baby?" he asked, almost in disbelief, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Emma, you have no idea what this means to me." For Emma, his reaction was like a dream. She didn't know what to expect, but had feared he might retreat, that the pressures of his family and societal expectations would be too much for him. But seeing the happiness in Michael's eyes erased all her fears, all the insecurities that had haunted her, replacing them with a wave of relief and love. "I promise to stand by you, Emma," he said, holding her hand firmly. "We'll raise this baby together. I don't care what others think. I choose you. I choose our family." Michael knew that this decision would change his life forever, but he was determined. He wouldn't let anything, not even the powerful influence of the Turner family, stand between him and the woman he loved. For him, Emma and the baby were now his priority, and he was ready to face any consequence to protect them. News of Emma's pregnancy soon reached the ears of the Turner family, and their reaction was as devastating as Michael had anticipated. In the grand family mansion, Victoria Turner, a woman of commanding presence and icy gaze, called for an emergency family meeting. The atmosphere was tense, with disapproving looks and expressions of disgust on everyone's faces. To them, the news wasn't just a scandal, it was a public disgrace. "Michael has completely lost his mind," declared Victoria, her voice firm and filled with contempt. "This woman, she must be trying to take advantage of him. It's absurd that my grandson would be raised by someone like her." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. The Turner family was used to maintaining an impeccable image, projecting power and respect in society. The idea that Michael, the most promising heir, could be involved with a homeless woman was a blow they never imagined facing. They tried everything to convince him to abandon Emma, urging him to reconsider his decision and think about the good of the family. "You're throwing your life away, Michael," Victoria exclaimed, a mixture of anger and desperation in her voice. "This woman is deceiving you, trying to take advantage of your position. Don't you see? She has nothing to offer you. And now, with this pregnancy story, it's clear she's just trying to latch onto you forever." But Michael, calm and resolute, stood his ground. He knew his family was concerned with public image, with absolute control over his life and choices. But in that moment, none of it mattered to him. All that mattered was Emma and the child they were expecting. He met each disapproving look with unwavering calm, making it clear that his choice was final. "The truth, Grandma, is that I love Emma, and we're going to have a child, and I'm not abandoning my family to satisfy the whims of an empty image." He spoke with a determination he had never shown before, and for a moment, even Victoria fell silent, surprised by the strength of his words. Even in the face of veiled threats, disdain, and immense pressure, Michael remained by Emma's side, steadfast in the commitment he had made. He knew his choice would be seen as a betrayal by the family, but for the first time in his life, he felt he was living by his own values, following what his heart truly wanted. The judgment, the silent condemnation, and the isolation his family imposed came at a high price, but Michael was willing to pay it. Deep down, he knew that Emma and the baby were all he needed to feel complete, and while the Turners distanced themselves, ever more entangled in their own pride and prejudice, Michael found in the new life he was building the true wealth that his fortune could never buy. The public announcement of his love for Emma was the definitive turning point for Michael Turner. In the weeks that followed the news, he experienced a loneliness he had never felt before. Longtime friends with whom he had shared luxurious parties and trips withdrew, as if his decision were an indelible stain. Many avoided him, fearing that their association might tarnish their own reputations. Michael knew that his gesture of love wouldn't be understood, but he had never imagined the backlash would be so devastating. Hateful comments echoed through social circles and business meetings, where people whispered that he had lost his mind by getting involved with a woman so far beneath him. He found out that the media had dubbed Emma the lucky homeless woman, which filled him with deep anger and sadness. On news sites and social media, cruel and insensitive comments multiplied, questioning her intentions and ridiculing his choice. But despite everything, Michael remained firm. Each criticism only reinforced his decision to stay with Emma and the child they were expecting. This was his new family, and he was ready to face the world for them. Amidst it all, Emma became his refuge. When he returned home after a tough day, having faced disdainful glances and judgmental whispers, he found peace and strength in her. Emma, who had already faced the worst life had to offer, understood Michael's pain, even knowing that his challenges came from a different place. She was a pillar of quiet strength, offering him the love and understanding he so desperately needed. Together, they shared a bond that transcended appearances and external judgments, a love that grew from the desire to protect one another. The two of them moved into a simpler apartment, far from the spotlight of high society and the opulence Michael had always known. The space was modest yet cozy, filled with simple decorations and personal touches they had chosen together. Here, Emma and Michael built a home that, though far from the standards of wealth and luxury, was filled with an unconditional, sincere love. Each laugh, each conversation, became a reminder of the courageous choice they had made. They found strength in the little joys of everyday life, the smell of coffee in the morning, their talks about the future, and their plans for the baby's arrival. While the world judged them, they found happiness in their daily lives, a happiness few could understand. Michael learned to appreciate the simple side of life, the small moments of affection and togetherness he had never known before. He loved Emma so deeply that any cruel comment or judgmental look became irrelevant when he was with her. And over time, he grew stronger, more confident that this was the right choice. The Turner family, however, remained in complete silence, a bitter, relentless rejection. To them, Michael had betrayed everything they represented, dragging their honor through the mud for a woman without a past, a stranger whose story was a mystery to everyone except him. Victoria Turner, his grandmother, remained unyielding, refusing any contact with her grandson as long as he stayed with Emma. But Michael, despite the pain of being rejected by his own family, understood that true love required sacrifices. He wouldn't let the weight of expectations and family traditions dictate his choices. Deep down, he knew that what he had found in Emma was much bigger, much more authentic than anything the Turner world could offer him. Finally, on a sunny morning, the day they had both anxiously and nervously awaited arrived. Emma went into labor, and Michael stayed by her side, holding her hand, giving her all the strength and support she needed. Each moment, each labored breath of Emma's, he felt the weight and joy of experiencing that instant, the miracle of a new life about to begin. After hours of tension, pain, and anticipation, little Angel was born. Michael and Emma exchanged indescribable looks of love as the nurse handed them the baby girl, wrapped in a soft blanket. Angel was tiny, delicate, and perfect. For Michael, holding her for the first time felt like touching the very meaning of life, as if everything they had fought for was materializing in that pure, tiny being in his arms. The name Angel was an easy choice. They both felt she was a gift from above, a light that illuminated the path they had walked together. In that moment, as he watched Emma's serene gaze fixed on their daughter, Michael realized that no sacrifice or challenge would be too great for his family. This was his true wealth, his greatest achievement. The first days after Angel's birth were intense but filled with a peace neither of them had ever known. Michael, who had never imagined changing diapers or staying up all night with a baby could be so rewarding, now understood the value of those small moments. He marveled at watching Emma care for their daughter with a nearly sacred tenderness, the way she sang softly to her, cradling her with love that seemed to overflow. In Emma's eyes, he saw the incredible mother she had become, and in Angel, he found the hope he had always lacked. Even isolated from the world they once knew, Michael and Emma managed to create a rich life for Angel. The love and dedication they poured into her provided a foundation for a safe home, where every detail was carefully considered to make sure she grew up happy and protected. Angel would never know the hardships or criticisms her parents had faced to get there. All she would know was the immense love of Michael and Emma, the security of a home where she was unconditionally cherished. Despite the absence of the Turner family, who still maintained a rigid distance, Michael had no regrets about his decision. Every one of Angel's smiles, every grateful look from Emma, made all the isolation, all the cruel remarks and judgmental stares insignificant. He knew that people continued to talk, to judge, but alongside Emma and Angel, any pain dissolved. As he watched Angel grow, Michael found in her smile the strength he needed to maintain his position. Life had taught him, in the hardest way, that true love required courage and sacrifice. But here, alongside his little family, he understood that he had found his purpose in life. And with Emma by his side and Angel in his arms, he knew nothing, not even the Turners' disdain, could tear him from this path. The first time Angel revealed her talent, it seemed like just another day. She was only 6 years old, spending the afternoon playing around the house, making up stories and characters as she always did, with a liveliness that filled the house with joy. Emma was in the kitchen washing dishes, and Michael was reading a book in the living room, absorbed in the calm of their simple yet love-filled home. That day, something changed forever. Amidst her play, Angel started singing. At first, her words were light, like childish whispers, but they soon transformed into a pure, vibrant melody that echoed through the house, surprising her parents. Michael and Emma stopped what they were doing, as if hypnotized. Angel's voice had a unique tone, something angelic and powerful, a combination they had never heard before. Michael exchanged a glance with Emma, both surprised and moved by what they heard. Each note Angel sang seemed to cascade down their hearts, stirring deep emotions difficult to describe. Her voice held a strength that transcended her age and experience. It was as if she channeled something beyond comprehension, a pure essence that touched the soul. Emma left the kitchen, quickly drying her hands on her apron without taking her eyes off her daughter. When she saw Angel standing in the middle of the living room, eyes closed and face serene as she sang, she felt a mix of emotion and admiration. The girl sang with passion and natural ease, as if she had been born for it. Each note she released was crystal clear, filled with emotion and depth, and Emma had to hold back tears at the beauty of the moment. Michael, heart racing and eyes brimming, knelt beside his daughter. Angel opened her eyes, pausing her song, and smiled when she saw her father so close, still not fully understanding the impact her voice had on him. To her, singing was something natural, a joy that emerged as part of her play without pretension. "Angel, do you know you have a very special gift?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though his heart was overflowing with pride. The girl tilted her head, still with an innocent smile on her face. "I was just singing, Daddy. It's fun." Emma approached and enveloped her daughter in a loving hug. Her voice seemed to have the power to heal, to illuminate. At her age, Angel didn't grasp the impact of her voice, but Michael and Emma knew they were witnessing a rare talent, something they couldn't ignore. It was as if her voice held the ability to capture and reflect all the beauty and purity of her soul. In the days that followed, Angel continued to sing around the house as part of her daily routine, but Michael and Emma began paying closer attention, impressed by her vocal range and the clarity with which she sang each note. Emma, who had always dreamed of providing the best for her daughter, realized she might have a unique opportunity before her. For Angel, singing wasn't just play, it was a genuine expression of her soul, something that seemed to flow effortlessly, as if it came out perfectly formed. After discussing with Michael, Emma decided to seek out a local voice coach known for working with young talent. When the coach heard Angel sing for the first time, he was so moved that he needed a few minutes to collect himself. Her voice was unlike anything he had ever heard, and he eagerly offered to teach her, convinced that her voice was a true gift. Angel started voice lessons, and her talent quickly became evident to everyone around her. With each new song, her abilities blossomed like a rare flower, and the coach soon suggested she perform at small local events. Michael and Emma, wanting their daughter to have as normal a childhood as possible, hesitated at first. However, seeing how happy and alive Angel felt while singing, they decided to support her. Angel's first performance was at a local fair, where she stepped onto the stage in a simple dress, looking a bit shy, but as soon as she began to sing, her presence transformed completely. Her voice filled the small space and soon moved the audience, who had initially seemed uninterested, into a reverent silence. People exchanged incredulous glances, some even shedding tears, touched by the intensity of Angel's voice, which seemed to carry all the emotions of the world. News of the girl with the angelic voice quickly spread. Soon she was invited to perform at other local events, where she captivated ever larger audiences. Michael and Emma attended each performance, their hearts full of pride and admiration, moved to see their daughter's talent gaining recognition. The local media began to cover Angel's performances, and newspapers dubbed her the Angel of Opera. When Angel turned 7, her local success had grown to the point that a renowned Hollywood event producer heard about her and invited her to perform at a charity gala. It was a prestigious event, attended by celebrities and renowned critics. Emma and Michael hesitated to accept, worried about the pressure such an environment could place on their daughter. But Angel, with a serene smile, asked to sing. For her, being on stage was simply an extension of her happiness, a way to share her inner world with others. The night of the performance was magical. Angel stepped onto the stage, and as she looked at the audience, saw the attentive, curious faces eagerly awaiting the sound of her voice. She closed her eyes, and when she began to sing, a powerful yet delicate melody echoed through the theater. Her voice was so pure and filled with emotion that within seconds the entire audience was transported to a realm of feelings. There was something mystical and captivating about her presence, as if her voice were a portal to another dimension. The theater remained silent as Angel sang, and when she finished, her final note hung in the air like a gentle breeze. When she opened her eyes and looked at the audience, she saw tears in the eyes of many spectators. For a moment, silence reigned, followed by thunderous standing applause. Everyone without exception stood clapping with fervor. News of Angel's performance spread quickly, and the next day, she was featured in headlines everywhere. The Opera Angel, the little girl who moved Hollywood, adorned magazine covers and news websites. Critics praised her voice as otherworldly and emotionally breathtaking, and soon the world began to call her the voice of an angel. Soon, invitations began pouring in from all over the world. The most prestigious opera houses in Europe wanted to witness the phenomenon in person, eager to see the 7-year-old girl who had enchanted Hollywood. Michael and Emma, astonished by the speed and scale of their daughter's success, knew that their lives would change forever. They decided to accompany her on this journey, all while upholding their values and ensuring Angel had a fulfilling childhood despite her exposure to music and applause. For Angel, success was simply a byproduct of her passion. She continued to see singing as something natural, a way to spread joy. For her parents, however, it was confirmation that this extraordinary gift was something the world needed to hear. Angel's meteoric success, which quickly grew into a global phenomenon, brought not only admiration but also painful memories for those who, in the past, had chosen to ignore her birth and her parents' love. The Turner family, who had rejected Michael years before because of his decision to be with Emma, now felt a silent and growing regret. The scorn they had shown, the cruel distance and the indifference they had chosen, now echoed like an open wound, especially as they witnessed the talent and sweetness of Angel, a girl whom, by their own choice, they had never met. Victoria Turner, the imposing matriarch with an inflexible personality, now bore the weight of guilt that grew with each new report about her granddaughter. When Angel sang for the first time in Hollywood, Victoria wasn't there to see it, but she carefully read the critics' words, describing the girl's voice as supernatural and capable of moving even the hardest hearts. Each compliment felt like a silent blow, a reminder that she had not only missed the opportunity to witness this extraordinary talent up close, but had also denied support to her own grandson. In secret, Victoria and other family members began watching Angel's performances whenever they could. During a live broadcast of a European concert, Victoria felt tears streaming down her face, moved by a voice that crossed the screen and struck her heart deeply and unexpectedly. It was as if Angel's voice carried silent forgiveness, a pure, innocent love that Victoria herself had rejected in the past. With each note the girl sang, the matriarch's guilt and regret deepened, the weight of the scorn she had harbored for Angel's mother now returning as pain. Disturbed and anxious to make amends, Victoria knew she had to take action. As proud and unyielding as she was, she couldn't deny that Angel, with her sweetness and talent, had conquered the world and, most profoundly, her grandmother's heart. Without her family's knowledge, Victoria began seeking information about Michael and Emma's life. a nearly silent act of penance, a way to show herself that she was willing to overcome the barriers of pride. Finally, determined to attempt a reconciliation, Victoria reached out to Michael. Her first attempt at contact was ignored. Seeing his grandmother's name on his phone filled him with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Years ago, she had made it clear that any mention of him, Emma or Angel, was forbidden. Now, as if time had erased all wounds, she reappeared, seemingly wanting to make up for what she had done. Michael decided to protect Emma and Angel from any interference, especially since he knew the toll his grandmother's scorn had taken on his own choices. But Victoria was persistent. She sent letters, messages, and even left gifts for Angel at their apartment building, always with a note expressing her love. One day, Emma found one of Victoria's gifts, a small box with an antique pearl brooch, accompanied by a simple but deeply emotional note. For Angel, with love from your grandmother. Someday I hope I can embrace you in person. This small gesture made Emma understand the magnitude of Victoria's regret. Seeing that Victoria wouldn't give up, Michael decided to confront her, but he did so with a cold and direct approach. They met at a discreet cafe, where he made it clear that, as far as he was concerned, the distance would remain. Victoria listened in silence, her face marked by age and now the sadness of someone who understood it might be too late. Michael firmly reinforced that he wouldn't forgive the contempt she and the entire family had shown Emma, and that he would never tolerate anything that might threaten Angel's happiness. "Michael," she said, her voice low and trembling, a rare tone for someone so haughty. I was wrong to judge you, to treat Emma as an outsider. I now see that by doing that, I denied myself the chance to know the light that Angel has brought to the world." For the first time, Michael saw tears in his grandmother's eyes. She was vulnerable, stripped of all the coldness he had known. Despite Victoria's words of regret, Michael felt resistance within himself. Pride and pain were hard barriers to cross, but upon returning home he told Emma about the meeting, still uncertain about what to do. Emma, always more understanding, sensed the depth of Michael's hurt, yet she also saw that perhaps Angel might offer them all a chance for healing. That night, while tucking Angel into bed, Emma heard her say softly, "Mom, I know you and Dad love me, and I know Dad is sad. I just want him to know he doesn't have to be mad for my sake." Emma smiled and hugged her daughter, moved by Angel's wisdom and purity. She understood that for Michael, accepting Victoria was a way of reopening old wounds, but she also saw that perhaps Angel was creating a chance for them all to heal. After much reflection and long conversations with Emma, Michael finally agreed to let his daughter meet Victoria. However, he set strict boundaries, making it clear that he wouldn't tolerate any disrespect towards Emma or any part of their lives. Victoria, in turn, accepted each condition, grateful for the chance to at least try to know her granddaughter. The day of the meeting was marked by a tension Michael and Emma couldn't hide. Victoria arrived at their small apartment, a place very different from the grandeur of her mansion, but filled with warmth and a simplicity she had long forgotten. When Angel opened the door and saw her grandmother for the first time, she looked intrigued, but was overtaken by an inexplicable feeling of affection. The little girl ran to Victoria and, without hesitation, hugged her. That embrace, unexpected and filled with tenderness, disarmed Victoria. She felt her heart open in a way she never imagined possible. It was as if, in that moment, Angel's voice, which had moved her so deeply on stage, was present, bringing a peace she had never felt before. Michael and Emma watched from a distance, both emotional, yet guarded. Angel, who didn't know the full story, saw only a figure eager to give and receive love. The meeting went on, and Victoria had the chance to talk to Angel, to hear her stories and even to listen to her granddaughter sing just for her. When Angel's last note echoed in the room, Victoria was crying, feeling as if each sound carried a kind of silent forgiveness. Angel, with her pure heart, had done something that seemed impossible to Victoria. She had brought her back to the family love she had once rejected. In the days that followed, Michael saw a newfound lightness in his daughter, and slowly he began to understand that perhaps, through Angel, he too could find a path to forgiveness. Emma, who had always believed in the power of love, supported this reconciliation, knowing that Michael's heart needed time and understanding to heal from past wounds. But now, there was renewed hope, a bond that Angel, in her purity and innocence, had created without even realizing it. And so the dark past of rejection gave way to a new chance for unity and understanding. Victoria, transformed by remorse and Angel's love, knew she couldn't undo the past, but could embrace the present sincerely. In doing so, all of them, in one way or another, began to believe in a new possibility of family. The night of Angel's European concert was a dream come true for them all. Michael and Emma had supported their daughter every step of the way, and now, at only 7 years old, she was about to perform on one of the world's most renowned stages. Excitement and nerves ran high. Since Angel had risen to fame with her divine voice, both Emma and Michael had realized that this unique gift could not only transform her, but also reunite all parts of a family long lost in its own wounds and prejudices. The decision to let the Turner family attend that night came after many conversations, compromises, and above all, sincere apologies. Victoria, whose presence was a source of tension, slowly gained Angel's trust and began participating in small moments of her life. She began attending rehearsals, listening to her sing, and even cheering her on in her accomplishments. Angel, with her pure and open heart, welcomed her grandmother with a kindness only children possess. In the days leading up to the big night, Angel remained visibly calm, her serenity reflecting her confidence in her talent and her parents' love. Michael, on the other hand, tried to hide his anxiety behind a smile, unable to conceal the emotion that overwhelmed him every time he watched her rehearse. Emma, always with a protective, loving gaze, stood by him, holding his hand as if to reassure herself as well as him. Finally, the night arrived. The theater was packed, and anticipation filled the air. Journalists, music critics, and celebrities from all over the world had come, eagerly awaiting the moment when the Angel of Opera would take the stage. The Turner family was present in full force. Victoria and other family members had crossed the ocean to see Angel, and even distant relatives who had once avoided Michael and his new family were seated in the front rows, anxious and emotional, as if this were everyone's redemption. The theater fell silent as the lights dimmed and the stage was illuminated. Angel, dressed in an elegant white dress that seemed custom-made for her, entered with the grace and confidence of a seasoned performer. Her golden hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and a soft smile framed her face. Her delicate beauty and calm seemed contagious. From the depths of the stage, Angel's voice began to soar, a low, gentle note that grew in strength and emotion with each passing moment. It was as if the entire theater was under a spell. Angel's voice filled every corner, touching each soul as though speaking directly to each person's heart. Her parents, sitting in the front row, watched their daughter with tear-filled eyes, feeling that the entire journey, the hardships and victories, culminated in that moment. Michael held Emma's hand, both in a state of indescribable emotion. On his face, there was the pride of a father who had watched his daughter defy all odds and triumph, while Emma felt her heart overflowing with love and gratitude, seeing her family united around Angel. For her, it was as if every tear, every moment of pain, and every hardship had been worth it to witness this moment. Victoria, sitting beside them, watched her granddaughter with an expression of emotion she rarely displayed. She felt a silent, overwhelming pride, something she herself had never thought possible. Angel's voice resonated as redemption for her own soul, as if each note from the stage brought her forgiveness and love she had longed to reclaim. With each moment, the grandmother understood how her prejudice had blinded her heart, and how much this little girl was a gift she had almost lost forever. As Angel sang, the audience remained utterly silent, enraptured by the purity and emotion her voice conveyed. It was as if time had stopped, with nothing existing beyond the music and the girl's voice. When she released the final note, which reverberated through the theater like an angelic sigh, the audience erupted in applause. It was as if everyone needed to express the impact of that moment with all their strength. Michael and Emma rose immediately, clapping vigorously, tears still streaming down their faces. Angel looked at them from the stage, breaking into a radiant smile, a smile that only children surrounded by love and security can display. She knew she had done what she had always dreamed of, brought joy to her family and shown the world her true gift. Victoria, too, stood up, unable to hold back her own tears. For once, her rigid and restrained demeanor was completely undone. She wiped away tears she could no longer contain and looked at Michael and Emma with a silent expression of gratitude. For the first time, she understood that beyond the pride of a flawless performance, she felt the weight of true family love, something that no amount of money or status could replace. After the performance, the entire Turner family went to Angel's dressing room. The room was filled with flowers and words of praise, and each family member made a point of congratulating her. moved and enchanted by the girl's extraordinary talent. It was a celebration of love and resilience, where past wounds were left behind. When Victoria approached Angel, the little girl, with her natural kindness, opened her arms to her grandmother, who embraced her with warmth. In that moment, any trace of resentment or distance vanished, and they held each other in an embrace that symbolized forgiveness and acceptance everyone needed. Michael and Emma watched Angel and Victoria's reunion, feeling that the circle was finally complete. All the pain, judgment, and separation they had endured over the years now seemed insignificant in the face of the love uniting them. They were all together, and this unity was everyone's true victory. Each family member, even those who had once been reluctant, now stepped forward, offering not only words of praise but, most importantly, their hearts. It was as if Angel's presence had healed every wound and broken down every barrier that had once divided them. For Angel, this was a moment of pure joy. She had captivated the audience, brought her family together, and, most importantly, shown the world what she was capable of with her voice. At only 7 years old, she had achieved what many adults never could, uniting her family through love and music. That night would forever be remembered as the moment when all conflicts dissolved, as if her music had the power to harmonize every heart it touched. On the way home, Michael, Emma, Angel, and Victoria walked together, laughing and talking about the future, dreams, and new possibilities. Seated side by side, they finally felt free from any judgment, free to be the family they had always wanted to be. As Michael and Emma looked at their daughter, they knew that every pain and sacrifice had led to a moment of fulfillment and joy that only true love can bring. Their journey, filled with highs and lows, had reached a happy ending, where family was the greatest treasure. And so, under the European night stars, the Turner family was complete. United, they walked toward the future with peace in their hearts, knowing that true life's value lies in acceptance, forgiveness, and the love they shared. And Angel, with her angelic voice and radiant smile, was the bond that would keep them together forever. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Don't miss the video now appearing on the screen. Click to keep enjoying stories that will move you.